I don't want to depend on mega corporations doing X, Y, and Z to dictate our future in some way or another, as much as I can help it. But sometimes you get caught in that crossfire, and that wasn't our goal initially. Like, we signed up with Perfect World, and there's no expectation they'd sell to any other company ever. That wasn't even a discussion or a thought in, I think, anybody's mind until they came along, and until Embracer came along. So I think most of the scenarios that happen, like Heart Machine will be fine, regardless of how it pans out, generally speaking. I mean, there are scenarios where, it's not so great, but, if they restructure things internally and don't sell it, or just, there's a lot that's going to happen behind the scenes that, again, we have no say or control over. These are folks that we've been working with for 2+ years now. So that alone is just a stressful change of, I don't know who I'm going to be working with in a few months, generally. It might be Gearbox San Francisco, but I don't know if it's the same people or not, or maybe it isn't. I don't know what happens. So.
Games development involves a lot of plate spinning. It's hard enough to make sure a project with so many moving parts can aim for a single target, for instance an upcoming early access launch, but it's even harder when forces outside of the studio start impacting the team. Through no fault of their own, the developers at Heart Machine have found themselves affected by business issues outside of their control. The original publisher for Hyperlight Breaker, Perfect World, was acquired by the now infamous Embracer Group in 2021. Perfect World was renamed Gearbox Publishing SF, and it's that studio that Alex has been working with for years. We interviewed the head of Gearbox Publishing SF in San Francisco in the previous episode. But in 2023, Embracer Group's strategy of acquiring as many studios and as much intellectual property as possible caught up with them. This has led to mass layoffs across Embracer Group's portfolio as they struggle to deal with the financial fallout of their own catastrophic business strategy failures. Heart Machine is an independent studio, but even so, they risk the splash damage of Embracer Group's collapse. That's because during the production of this episode, the worst kept secret in the games industry is that Embracer is desperately trying to sell off Gearbox. But games development involves a whole lot of plate spinning, and this won't be the only obstacle the team has to face in 2023.
So, first of all, tell us how the gameplay reveal went. The IGN reveal, the trailer, the whole shebang.
IGN stuff went well, and it feels good to just be done with that trailer, as it always does, because trailers are a fucking pain in the ass. I do a lot of the work on trailers myself, yeah. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a love-hate thing where trailers are like the main way that we communicate with our audience beforehand to build up anticipation, and I kind of don't want anybody else doing that unless they're amazing at trailers, and then it's like, well, it's still gonna be not our trailer. I don't know, I have a style and a vibe that I want to hit for the games that we're making, and that doesn't mean that I want to make every trailer ever, all the time, constantly for the rest of the time for our projects, but I think for now at least, and for the past 10 years, it's just made the most sense. I try not to read too much of the comments. I do read some, like it's kind of inevitable, like, or I don't know, I'm a human, so it's like, yeah, I do want to know some things. So I get plenty of, posts and whatever else from team members, like, look, this person said that, and whatever else. It's nice to kind of get that like peripheral bit where it's like you're still getting the information directly because they like post a screenshot or whatever of a thing, but I don't have to seek it out because there's a lot of like different comments to sort through, and at the end of the day, there's only so much value in reading through those things, because especially if you're like me and like you can be sensitive about stuff even when you're not, like you can have a thick skin but also be sensitive about certain things, and I'd rather not put myself through that most of the time, so I kind of just let it ride and like vaguely look at the numbers and scroll through a few comments here and there, and then mostly let other people like fill me in on the stuff that they will naturally fill everyone in on.
So that wasn't my question. So no actual survival.
Watching developer Alex Preston walk me through some early Hyperlight Breaker gameplay at this year's Game Developers Conference makes the already inscrutable world of Hyperlight feel even more esoteric. Hyperlight Drifter was already a game told in strong imagery rather than language, with a story to be slowly puzzled out over time and significant effort. But Breaker is a total gameplay departure from Drifter, so experiencing it through cryptic hints from Preston about what's going on as he pummels his way through piles of enemies in rainbow-tinted biomes gives it even more of an aura of mystery.
It's a procedural world, and levels and things happen. There's a day-night cycle, and enemies appear and disappear and go away, and you kill them, whatever else, they respawn. There's like things you can go into, and tunnels and caves and buildings, and like all sorts of stuff fucking happens in our world. And there's different biomes in the same world, and so turns out it's a complicated structure.
Are we documenting this? Okay.
You play as a breaker in a group of breakers, and your whole point is like break the land, and you help to reestablish settlements from old broken down cities. And so you'll go out on runs, bring back materials, and part of your duty here is like, build up the city. Like certain things sock it in, and lights go on, population goes up. There's a day-night cycle here, which will at some point go on. Like you're catching me in a time where I feel a lot better about the game than I did even in December, even in January. You know, we hit a lot of really good targets in the last few months and really pushed the game ahead in ways like we needed to.
Well, that was a big thing for us, was Mangaea, which was the manually placed, laid out like Pangea predecessor. That's what we were showing to the publisher. We were showing it off to people, trying to show off the idea. It was a big moment where we were trying to get to the point where Pangea, the procedural one, was able to replace that for all the showings and things. And that happened like sometime, gosh, was that December maybe? There was a moment where Alex was like, it's working. I actually think Pangea is working. And so it is a thing of the past now, which is cool. Everybody's like working off the procedural level now for months. There's been all kinds of bugs of stuff being placed in the wrong place, boulders covering the teleporter start, so when you start the game, you're just inside a boulder. That's not good.
It feels like a good fucking map in a lot of ways. It's pretty cool. So we achieved the thing that we wanted to achieve, which was an open world that is, you know, mostly procedurally generated with, of course, like handcrafted elements blended together in a way that feels like good level design holistically. And there's plenty of jank and bugs and other things that we're going to continue to quash, but we're at a good clip for it. And like, again, it was really empowering to cross that threshold. You know, the whole Pangea initiative was, of course, scary and risky, but it has definitely paid off, and like we've hit that goal in a really empowering way at this point. I have been holding off for many months, like 9 months basically, to really play test with any people I trust, like fellow developers and whatever else that I've known for years. You know, the IGN thing, where it's like, it wasn't just the trailer, it's like I showed them a bunch of games. I sat with them and played the game for like 30 minutes and answered a bunch of questions, and like I skipped some things and like, you know, went around some of the jankier stuff and like said ignore this, ignore that, and like kept it narrower than it was. It's like ultimately though, I could just show the game and get real feedback and implement that feedback too, and make decisions based off of a foundation that's very strong now.
But the dreamy, futuristic aesthetic and the overall mysterious vibe is thus far spot on. And I'm eager to see how Hyperlight Breaker fits in the larger Hyperlight universe that Heart Machine seems to be building.
Over the course of 2023, Heart Machine's in-studio presence has slowly grown again. But as the team expanded during COVID, a large number of the development staff were hired as remote workers. Some moved during COVID, others are hybrid, some travel a bit. Justin called us from a coffee farm in South America. By this stage, the public release for early access was fall of 2023, just a few short months away, and each of the development team, regardless of if they're in the studio or at home, is working hard to get their slice of Hyperlight Breaker complete.
So this is the Junker. All he wants is money. He doesn't care who you are, he just wants your money. He's a run NPC, so you'll find him out in the world. Hopefully he has something to sell that can kind of give you a nice little bonus. You know, he's going to be standing there for a long time, so he adjusts his backpack, because that thing has got to be heavy. But yeah, he's got all sorts of little details on him that were really fun to just wiggle around. That's like something I say to a lot of people when they're like, what do? Do you draw the pictures? No, I'm a 3D animator, so I make the things wiggle in 3D.
Every day we have, different teams do play tests together, and sometimes, cross teams, and just generally it's encouraged to play the game, and hop on Discord, play the game with someone from your team or someone you're talking to, and just see how it's going, see what you feel, see what you've put in there and how that's working in the world, kind of a thing. So we all have a really good perspective on how the game's developing and where it is.
So this is our player character lineup for early access in our Unreal Engine look dev scene, and that's the scene where we're doing the material development, so it's a kind of a neutral lighting setup. Yeah, so here's our 3 species we're releasing early access for. The blue cat species over here, the crow species in the middle, the tanuki on the right here. So there's a goal to do basically 2 body types. So we're just calling them Type A, which is the smaller frame, and Type B, which is the bigger frame. Here's the Type A for the tanuki, or tanu as we call it for short.
Okay, so here he is again. What does he do in this pass? This one, he idles, and then he's like, oh, is someone close? Uh-oh. Don't take my things.
I had a lot of license to determine the style of the materials and the fidelity of the models, and I wanted to engender a model aesthetic that would be fun to work on, that would be very fast, inject a lot of color into, iterate on quickly, that sort of thing. So our material workflow is very versatile. We covered it, I think, in a heart-to-heart a while ago. There's some examples there of how we can just take one rock and just say hey, we're gonna make this rock 4 different types of rocks because the materials allow for it.
Well, it'll go through concept first, and then John and his team will do the modeling, and then it's handed off to our rigger Saul, and they will do the rigging, which is so beyond my brain capacity, and then it's pushed over to animation team. So we're closer to the end of the pipeline, but I think since so many assets of our game are in flux, it kind of comes in waves.
There's a lot of important things that go into there, like how the camera is moving, the zoom, the position, the camera lag, VFX, audio, so many little things that kind of cue the player as to what's going on in the world to kind of bring you in.
Most of our early access stuff at this point on character art side is complete. The initial player character base skins for early access, first 2 bosses for the games, that is done. All of the initial enemies. So most of our early access stuff at this point on character art side is complete.
The vibe at Heart Machine is a lot different in 2023 than when it was when we first started this series in 2022. For one, the game looks so much better. A lot of the fundamental questions have been answered, and each time we check in on one of the team members, you can see, often visually, how much the game is progressing. Secondly, the de-escalation of COVID-19 has meant that a lot of the social activity the team used to enjoy is now back on the table. Community Fight Nights is one welcomed addition, but it turns out the studio had a much more important milestone just around the corner.
I didn't prepare a speech, so I'm just gonna fucking wing it. Thanks for coming. You're all beautiful. I think we do our best to make amazing stuff, and it's not always the easiest time. It can be very stressful, but it's really rewarding when A, something actually gets out the fucking door, and B, you get to do it with dope-ass people like you all. I hope we get to keep doing this for 10 fucking more years. All right, I'm done. I'm gonna backflip. Goodbye!
Hey everybody, some news from us at Heart Machine. So we need just a bit more time on Hyperlight Breaker before we launch into early access. We have worked incredibly hard to get here. The game has come such a long way in such a short amount of time. We've built an expansive, complex, and rock-solid foundation, executing on the absurd idea of a new open world for every run. This, as you can imagine, takes time and effort not only to develop, but to continue to iterate, test, and make sure it's consistent. We have a lot of wild ideas we want to put into the game, which is exciting and thrilling since the format and tech we've created allows so much possibility. This short push will give us the best chance for a stronger first step into open development in early access next year. Thank you so much for your understanding, for your patience, and for being part of our incredible community. As expected, we'll keep dropping regular updates until release, so please stick with us and stay tuned.
We announced the delay until next year. We want to make sure that, well, first of all, this year is very stacked, so we wanted to kind of, get out of the way of any of the madness that's happening. But more importantly, for us internally, there's just a lot to explore with kind of the structure and game that we've created. The open world nature of it and the run-based elements in it, and how that all fits together, and also, of course, just the whole idea of new open worlds being re-rolled all the time opens up a ton of opportunities. So definitely there's always kind of an internal cost on just the sheer scale now that we're at like 40-ish people on the project, which is a lot for us.
I'm doing some low priority work because I'm about to go into a meeting. I'm trying to translate what it says in the game in the Breaker language. I'm trying to translate some 3D assets we made in the cipher that we no longer have a record of what they say.
I guess I would say I am the technical narrative director on Breaker. I basically am doing all of the implementation of our narrative stuff and how we're planning out story and how things unlock or determining what kind of stuff will trigger other story events to happen. It's gone through a couple iterations. I think very early on we were using something called Ink, like a markup language and programming language, I guess, for building out non-linear branching narrative structures. And then after several iterations, what we're doing now is we are just kind of rolling our own system, and a lot of that just is basically building a bunch of data tables in Unreal and filling those out and then tracking a bunch of binary lists of flags of, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you done this? Based on all of this information, here's the next thing that you're gonna see.
I'm Marissa Browski. I'm pretty new to Breaker, but I'm a 3D environment artist. Right now I'm working on some barriers for some beach defenses, so doing a tetrahedron model, but yeah, just kind of putting it in Substance right now and getting some masks out so that we can go into the material work. Yeah, I just put this into Substance right now, but basically what I would do is I'm gonna bake down the mesh maps and start doing some fill layers to get our mask texture out, and then I'm gonna go into Unreal and start actually making the material in there. But that's kind of our process. So not a whole lot in actual Substance Painter, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
This is Bodhi. I think Bodhi is a golden doodle. This is Mio's dog. I spend at least 15 minutes every day petting this dog, which is good for stress. So the thing that I'm kind of working on is a bit of a reshuffle with how our environments are put together. So I don't know how much you've heard about a lot of this stuff is sort of procedurally generated. We're trying to do some addition by subtraction. And for a long time, there were like these big towers that were in the game, and players are supposed to go over them and like beat up bad guys and then unlock something. That's how you make progress through the game. And I think what we're trying to do right now is shift some of the importance and some of the focus onto some of the cool environments. So like, oh, if you see something in the distance, like you should think that's important, and you should know that, you know, you're gonna go find some goodies and go get in some scraps and adventures. You know, you go over towards like the old broken castle. What that means in reality is that like we have to take a bunch of data tables and shift a bunch of information around and knob twiddle until we kind of get some of the results that we want.
I'm here to business around, to keep up with everything going on and, you know, start talking about future things as early as possible, because, you know, you got to do that when you run a studio. It's important. Like future project things, publishing things. I mean, there's other people in the industry that are here that are just good to check in on and see what's up, that, you know, you want to maintain relationships and say hello. And also, again, just kind of gauging the temperature of what's going on in the industry at large, since it's been very strange lately. And this isn't just like, hey, the things going on with Embracer Group and the sale and whatever else. It's also the state of the industry and how that impacts people who even keep their jobs, you know, let alone the people that don't keep their jobs. Of course, it's horrible, but, you know, we exist in kind of our bubble, so we are affected now by this Embracer stuff, but still, you know, there's this cascading effect across the industry where it isn't just the people who get laid off, because it's the teams that maybe that project still exists, but now you don't have the resources you once did. You have to reformat, restructure that project in some way or another, or cancel it because you just don't have the people anymore. And that's really debilitating in some ways, or just demeaning, because you're working on this thing for a year or 2 years, maybe more in some cases, and you never announce it. You're really excited and it's going well, and then it's gone. I think about every possibility that could happen with Gearbox. I mean, ultimately, I'm kind of concerned generally about what it means for anything, because whether people shuffle around, whether like money goes away from marketing or gets more marketing money, or, you know, schedules, like I don't know. And that's the part, is just the not knowing. So maybe it turns out fine and they perfectly nail this thing and they add all this money here and maybe we have more marketing, but I just don't know. And we're all kind of sitting tight wondering what's going to happen, and obviously there's not much information to share on that front until things happen. So the wait and see, really, you know, yeah, I don't know what happens with marketing budgets, really. You know, I'm not really privy to that stuff at the moment, and I can be as concerned as I want to be about it, but ultimately it's not going to be super helpful. So trying to focus down on just making the game as good as I can, as good as we can, that's the only thing that I can really do to distract from, you know, what's going to happen in the future on these fronts.
Embracer Group has officially divested Gearbox Entertainment, selling the division to Take-Two Interactive for $460 million. It originally purchased Gearbox for $363 million. In a press release, Embracer shared that it is divesting Gearbox Software, Gearbox Montreal, Gearbox Studio Quebec, and the franchises Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Homeworld, Risk of Rain, Brothers in Arms, and Duke Nukem. Embracer will retain rights to Gearbox Publishing San Francisco, formerly Perfect World Entertainment, and which it plans to rename, the publishing rights to Remnant, Hyper Light Breaker, and other unannounced games, Cryptic Studios, Lost Boys Interactive, and Captured Dimensions. All of its retained assets will be integrated into other parts of Embracer Group. The sale is expected to close by the end of June. Gearbox will join Take-Two's 2K.
After another year of hard work, this one sprinkled with a fair amount of uncertainty, the team at Heart Machine is on the final stretch for their early access build. If you're interested in playing the game when it launches in early access, you can add it to your wishlist on Steam. I mention that because if all goes to plan, this should be the final episode of Hyperlight development where the game isn't actually playable in some form. Our next episode, episode 4, will cover the early access launch and reception to Hyperlight Breaker.
So will you be going to GDC? Will you be doing a lot of the same stuff you're doing here or there?
Pretty much, yeah. I think we're showing a demo at GDC for Breaker for the first time.
To who?
To the public. First time we'd be doing that ever. So it'll be an old build, but it's still solid and does the things we wanted to do. But it's going to be a lot of, don't worry about that. That's not there yet. Don't worry.